Hey everybody, this is B-Word of the Bleach Bros Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to bring your attention to our Linktree. Please visit Linktree/Bleach Bros Podcast for the links to all of our socials, streaming sites, and merch. Linktree is linktr.ee/Bleach Bros Podcast, all one word. If you enjoy our content, make sure to give us a like and give us a review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Also, invite your friends. And with that, let's get started with the show.
Hello. It's Hans from Action Movie Book Club, and you are listening to a show with multiple hashtags, two guys who have made more of their middling talent than should ever be possible. One's firing blanks and the other's just edging. It's not Jake and the Fat Man, it's Jake and the B-Word. That's right, it's the Bleach Brothers Podcast. Enjoy, or don't. Fuck do I care.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers Podcast. This is B-Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy, what's your name again?
Jake. We're back. We're back to good buddy.
Jeffrey?
Jake. No, Jake.
Oh, okay.
Jake. Although I mumble when I talk, I hear, and people always just say J because I just like I spell or type, I'm just like, oh, I'm Jay.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
I don't enunciate very well, yeah.
I could see that. I could see that. So we are actually we're here with another guest, Jake. And I have to be honest, my man. You know, we behind the curtain, we don't always get the opportunity to check out nearly as many podcasts as we want to, right? So there's times that we get approached by podcasts, or we approach podcasts to potentially do a collab and think that maybe our audience would fit with their audience, or their audience would fit with our audience, et cetera, so forth, right?
So we fit in the hole. Fit in the hole.
Yeah, square peg, round hole. We've got we've got a podcast guest on with us right now. We've got Sully from the Jacked Up Podcast, and before we introduce Sully, I have to admit I checked out the Jacked Up Podcast, Jacked Up Review Podcast, please excuse me there, and they were talking about the following. And you and I, in a previous episode, were talking about slashers, and I think it was called We Don't Want to Talk About Serial Killers.
Serial Killers, yeah.
And we were ranking slashers, and I brought up Joe Carroll from the following, and dude, I soaked up Jacked Up Review Podcast last episode. It was phenomenal. It was so good. Happy to have him on. Sully, welcome into the Bleach Bros Podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
Thank you ever so much. This has been a year of just nonstop collaborations. You're about my sixth guest spot I've done this whole month. I was on another podcast that was still going. I wasn't really liking how it was run. And I was like, you know what? I got to start my own deal. And so next thing you know, we started up in the fall before COVID hit, like officially shut everything down. And we just kept going. I was like, hey, let's talk about a bunch of shows that, you know, are loved, but I don't think anyone's really done a podcast on. We're not going to do an episode by episode thing, but we can do maybe split it up into seasons or just do the whole fucking thing. And then, you know, we did a bunch of other actors and filmmakers and directors and music band specials. And it was like, yeah, it's a free-for-all. It's a variety show. We can even do a fun just shit talk about pop culture or society or politics if we really want to. But just let's have some fun. Let's be a little enlightening, and if we miss a topic, you know, we can always revisit it. We can talk about the favorite villains from that movie or TV franchise, or the best gory, scary, action-packed, or just awesome moments that you remember. That's the reason you went to the theater in the first place. And it's pretty much just a free-for-all pop culture thing. We reviewed everything from MXC and The West Wing to shows like and movies like The Terminator and 24. We're going to actually do a lot of franchise rankings come 2023. So that'll be interesting.
So fans of our show eventually got to find out where the name Bleach Bros came from. Where does Jacked Up Review Show come from?
I think I was just goofing up, jacking up, you know,
oh yeah, we've all jacked off. Yeah, we were jacking off.
No, but I that has been nicknamed that before. But yeah, I was just like, just screwing off, fucking around. I was like, yeah, but let's. There's so many characters who are named Jack. I was like, okay, let's jack it up.
Well, see, I'm glad you said MXC because in college we used to have a thing called Piahooge Night where we would drink Captain Morgan rum and watch MXC and just get blitzed hammered and just have a blast watching that show when they put it on Spike TV. I mean, that's a great fucking show.
You can still watch it. It's on Tubi.
Oh, good. See, now I know. So now I can do that again and, have some Piahooge nights to remember.
I was telling my brother the other day, I'm like, hey, you want some politically incorrect fun? Just put this bitch in. I was putting it in, and the girls in my house, my mom and sister were very unimpressed. They're like, I get it. It's intentionally offensive, but I'm like, okay.
Fuck yeah.
No, totally good. I think starting you've got a little bit of leverage on us and some other podcasters that are out there that, you started it right before the pandemic. Arguably for those that, were homebound or unemployed, unfortunately, it was a great time to watch TV and catch up on all those shows.
Yes, all the good shit.
Talk to me about a hidden gem that you found, or hidden gems, maybe 1, 2, 3. What kind of surprised you? Maybe was it a show that everybody watched but you didn't, or was it a show that you found that maybe everybody else didn't see?
This is where it gets a little hard. There are a lot of shows that a lot of people, you see a lot of memes and fandom about, but they just can't really sit still and talk about it, especially on a podcast. But the biggest one that was just like how surprising it kind of just took off after a year of being on was probably Ted Lasso. It was kind of just small, laid-back comfort food. It had something for everybody. It wasn't easy to classify. It was a comedy, but it was also kind of a dramedy. It was also it was about soccer in the UK, but it wasn't just British or American-based humor. It was just a little something for everybody, and it made you feel good at the end. And then so we looked it up, and it's like, oh, wow, it's by the creators of Scrubs, and it's, Jason Sudeikis played this character, before in a bunch of, like, MLB ads or something like that. And it just took off from there, and it was just kind of the word of mouth show. It was like, yeah, that is a thing, isn't it? When's it on? Well, I'm not subscribing to Apple Plus yet, but then after a while, this is like, okay, I'm going to check it out. And it lived up to the hype, and it's just so rare because when people hype something up, usually you're just like, yeah, but knowing you, it can't be that good.
Right.
It's not, I'm just going to be too snarky for me, or it's going to be funny, but it's not ha ha ha. It's more, Yeah. And it was surprisingly within 10 minutes, it was an easy sell. It was like, okay, yeah, I know I'm watching this all the rest of tonight, and I'm going to be, and we want to find something as like you want to binge it or watch a good chunk of it, as opposed to, just deliver a hot take or oh my god, I love it. It's like we want to really have something for everybody, and it's like, was it ahead of its time, like The Office or X-Files, or was it just kind of something word of mouth, like people caught it years when it was in syndication after it been canceled unfairly? And it doesn't have to be just a show. We do plenty of movies as well, from Hellraiser and Phantasm to just better known stuff. We're going to do a Freddy versus Jason franchise face-off, for instance, because those are in the same universe. But for instance, you're either a Freddy or a Jason guy, or you might be both, but they, one of them might have a better part 4 than the other.
Yeah, right.
Well, you brought up Ted Lasso. I mean, I will say this. That is one of those shows, and B-Word had me watch it, that I heard everybody talking about it, and it's one of those, I have not heard one person that did not like that show.
I saw a few people trolling in a community Facebook group, but they just seemed like they just wanted a rise out of people.
Yeah, they're just trolling to troll, not
They've
actually,
only seen Community. They haven't actually seen anything else yet, and I was like, okay, stay in your cage, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So we have a fun rundown for you tonight. This one's going to use all of our imaginations. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I kind of feel like this is a Dungeons and Dragons style rundown. Jake, is that kind of what you would talk about here?
Yeah, I love fantastical things, but also the whole reason this podcast started, B-Word, is when we would say things like, oh, if we were in the TV show Friends, who would we be, and what's the best characters and stuff like that. And I feel like we're combining a lot of everything: food, movies we like, universes, reboots, and a whole everything that we enjoy, and the reason the fans listen to this show is happening. So it's a fun little rundown. I think we're going to enjoy it, and I think people might be surprised with the answers, because we've had a lot of interaction too on some of the posts already, which is nice. We have.
So with the first topic that we're going to talk about here, food mascots, okay? Mm-hmm. We're talking about potentially building a film around a food mascot. And Sully, you are our guest. So what food mascot do you want to build a film around, and what genre would this film be?
Okay, perfect. Do you got the perfect epic movie trailer music for me? Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Coming this summer is Russell Crowe fighting around the world as Captain Crunch from Sony Pictures Animation. And Charlie Day comes in the vein of Pirates of the Caribbean, the Captain Crunch Adventures.
I love that. Actually, I love the casting on that too.
Fought around
Russell
the world.
Crowe. That's badass. Actually, I'm gonna be pretty honest. I didn't do any castings on any of these, except for the film franchise. So I feel like I didn't show up to the party here. But Jake, you came up with this rundown. What's your food mascot, and talk to me about the film.
So I had a little bit of thoughts behind this, and originally I was like, okay, if I was going to do, and I'm going to throw out a little one that's just sort of a joke and a little fun, but if we could take fellow podcasters, dads on Dayquil, and make them snap, crackle, pop in a Three Stooges universe, I would fucking love the Gnome, the Don, and the Stoned snap, crackle, and pop over a bowl of cereal and kicking the shit out of each other. I think that would be freaking hilarious. But I tried to go with an obscure one, because when I came up with this rundown, I was like, okay, Chester Cheeto, one of the best ones out there, right? And we tried to go for marketable ones that would be fun. I mean, Chester Cheeto could be like in a Sly spoof film. He could be in a porn, if the Pornstache guys wanted to talk about that. But I went with Mac Tonight.
Oh,
the 80s Moonhead McDonald's character that played the Knife at Night or whatever piano. And I'm going to put him in a John Wick style universe, where somebody kills his little baby Grimace, and he goes and he has to guns a-blazing, mow down Ronald and all the rest of those fun, the Hamburglar and all those characters. But Mac Tonight's coming out, and he's blowing people a fucking way. Like, this summer, here we go. Mac Tonight is fuck you. I mean, that would just be tits, dude. Fucking boobies and subies all day.
Who's going to be the voice of Grimace?
Oh, I don't know. I don't need to. Grimace, I'm going to make him his little butt plug dog. He's not going to have a voice, and he's just going to be a little puppy, like a pug, but a butt plug pug that's down there that gets killed.
That's
I
amazing.
have to say, you guys said yours, and mine is not nearly going to add up. So, my first thought was, okay, if you're going to take a food mascot and you're going to create a movie out of it, there's going to be really two main genres that you can do, right? So, or at least two popular genres. There's going to be horror, like you can do a horror franchise, right? Or a porn franchise. And so we're talking about like Wendy getting a gangbang on, right? From
the
Wendy's.
creators of X.
So what I really wanted to do is I didn't want to do that. Okay, I didn't want to sit there and have a bukkake on
want to gangbang Wendy and be one of her 5 nuggets.
No, I don't want to.
That'll get your nuggets wet.
I don't want a frosty Wendy's face. Okay. So where I'm at here is I wanted to do kind of a crime thriller drama, but I wanted to do almost like The Godfather, where you've got the 5 families. And the 5 families are the King from Burger King. You've got Jack from Jack in the Box, Colonel Sanders from KFC, Wendy from Wendy's, and then Ronald McDonald from McDonald's. And between the 5 of them, they control a city, right? And so it's this crime drama. And if we're talking about like the actual 5 families of The Godfather, I kind of feel like the Corleones. I want the main family to be Jack from Jack in the Box. Like, he's almost got this Gus Fring off of
forming Monopoly,
off of Breaking Bad. He's got this little restaurant. He's got a front, right, that he has, and under that hat is an actual gun. Like he can actually shoot bullets out of it and shit. So I kind of thought that I wanted this to be a crime drama, and kind of go with that with the 5 families. Now, if Pornstache was our guest, it would definitely be bukkake on Wendy. You would have, secret sauce. You would have like the Big Mac sauce. You'd have everything just like drizzled all over her face. Because Pornstache is not our guest, I decided to go with the 5 families.
I want to see the gangbang more than the gang violence, but you know what? I'll give it to you. That's good. That's good. That's a good thought of a lot of them. I mean, it is fun. It is fun to think of the marketability that they could do behind this. Because, I mean, if we look at it, as I said, Chester Cheeto, right? They changed him. They also changed Colonel Sanders, where they've made him into a different type of character now for commercials and stuff that is fun, like weird and odd. And so it would be fun to see these things. I mean, we've seen it with video games, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember, Chex Cereal had the Chex remake of a Doom game that is freaking awesome that came with the box of cereal. Yeah, the Chex Cereal had a video game, and it was the same mods as Doom, the original one. And it's a fun fucking game. And so it's one of those things, like, we've tried to make movies with video games. We've done it with books forever. We've done it with other types of things. Why not try to do something like that? And I mean, it's also free marketing. You have it like, Wayne's World does that whole joke in the movie, like, oh, we're not going to sell out. And they're holding up Pepsi and Doritos and stuff. It would be a freaking blast. But, I mean, as long as it's not as bad, I will say this. I don't know if you guys know this one as well. Pepsi has a video game. Pepsi Man is one of the worst video games
really?
ever.
Yes.
But if they pulled it off like Chex did and have some fun, it would be awesome. But that's why I wanted to come up with that.
Wow.
Now that we've talked about that, let's get into this next part of if you could take characters and put them in an alternate universe. So characters from one universe into another one, which ones and why? B-word, I'll actually let you go this time.
So before we get into this, I just kind of want to read some comments that we had off of Twitter.
Okay.
So I'm sorry that to derail the train there, but we did have some really good comments specifically on food. Okay, so when we're talking about Ben or Jake and Ben Day Ben.
Yep.
He said how about a story of a cookie cartel was built from the streets up. The Keebler elves took no prisoners. They were brutal on their way up into the empire they are on now. They look innocent, but they have a bloody past. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was a great premise for that. Nice. The Pornstache podcast, speaking of Pornstache, said Kool-Aid Man, they want to be a horror. Why not, dude? You're going to have the Kool-Aid Man go through a wall, and it's going to be great. We also have 69 Whiskey says Tony the Tiger and Chester Cheetah in a buddy cop comedy. I think that one's amazing. I think that one is amazing. The last one here that I want to highlight is we've got a History Boys podcast says I want to make a gritty drama in stark black and white about Captain Crunch's dubious claims of naval valor while serving in the Spanish-American War, his rise to stardom based on stolen valor, and his meteoric fall and alienation from the public, like Raging Bull.
Let's have Captain.
Great.
Just like the show Pirates, or what is it, Black Sails, let's have Captain Crunch versus Gorton's Fish Fucker, Long John Silver, and what's the other one, the Captain Birdseye? Have those four fucking battle it out on their ships. That would be awesome.
See, that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what characters in a film would I like to see in an alternate genre? So my thought process here is that I wanted to take a film that was animated. Okay, a lot of people want to do maybe some live action. I decided to go with the Peanuts. Okay, so Snoopy, nice. Charlie Brown, all of that, and I wanted to throw it into a horror drama, okay, or a horror genre. Excuse me. And so I have a little bit of a cast here. Snoopy is the investigator, so he's the detective on the case. Peppermint Patty is actually the murderer. And then we have Pigpen, who's the prime suspect, who turns out not to be the murderer. We've got Violet, who's the murder victim. Miss Othmar, who's the teacher, she's the judge. So is the attorneys. The wah 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 wah. We've also got Linus, who serves as the defense attorney, and then we've got Charlie Brown as the prosecutor. So I love it. That's what I wanted to do.
I can see that. Sully, who you got and where?
Okay, so. Are you guys a fan of the TV show Psych?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to have Sean, Gus, maybe Lassie, and Jules. They're going to basically invade every other fucking show, like for a whole year.
just randomly pop up.
They're going to invade TNT. They're going to be on The Closer and its spin-off Major Crimes. That would work with the comedy that's on there. Not too far-fetched, but also just very fucking funny. They're going to invade the cast of Bones. Then they're going to do a brief Chuck reunion.
Okay.
And then they're going to invade every other horror sci-fi show like Twilight Zone, Stargate, X-Files, maybe Star Trek.
Okay, I can see that. No, and I see what you're saying. They would fit into a bunch of different ones. You could bring in the sci-fi element.
New
and all
Mystery
that.
Science Theater. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one too. No, I like that. I went with two movie favorites of my own when I first came down with this. The first one was The Goonies, and I want all the kids in The Goonies to play in it.
Oh, yes.
And Sloth can be it. I don't care. But put those kids and just have Mouth go up and not give a shit about the clown and go off. And, I think that would be a fun fucking adventure. The other one was all the kids from The Sandlot and put them in Stranger Things.
There
and
you
have
go.
Benny the Jet run from Vecna and race him out of there with his PF flyers on. And those were the two I thought of. I went with the TV one and I went with the movie one. And I had a hard time picking because those are two of my all-time favorite movies. I know we've talked about this stuff before, but it's the fact that those kid castings could be good and correlate well with their style of comedy.
There
and
you
can
go.
keep it the same. And I think it would be a good time.
What about the Home Alone kids in A Quiet Place?
Oh, see, yeah, and that's the thing. It's just you.
No, I think that's a really good one there. I almost want to see the cast of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and the cast of Home Alone crossover. Like have two John Candys on there, but just make sure that they cross over in that sense where the family, and then you got Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. They're trying to travel. They're missing their planes. They're missing everything. They're trying to get back to Kevin. Steve Martin's character is trying to get back to his family for Thanksgiving. Like it's just this big shit show of travel. Like you got TSA issues. You've got prime COVID. You can turn it into like the Walking Dead kind of thing. It would just be amazing. I think that would be a good mishmash there.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of getting back, we will be right back, guys. Let's play this.
Have you ever listened to a podcast about porn?
Why not let us be your guides?
We do all the dirty work for you.
All you have to do is sit back and enjoy.
We are the porn connoisseurs. I'm Big C.
And as always, you got your boy Jay. You can listen to our show, the Pornstache Podcast, every other Monday.
Listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and just about anywhere else.
Bleach Bros Podcast is proud to align itself with Jerky Pro, a beef jerky manufacturer established by military and paramilitary veterans.
Available in 3-ounce or 1-pound bags with great flavors such as honey glazed, teriyaki, red hot, apple cinnamon, original, peppered, sweet barbecue, and if you're ballsy enough, nuclear.
Be sure to use our promo code to get some of the best jerky on the market. Use Bleach Bros 5, all lowercase, to take advantage of this offer today. Welcome back to the Bleach Brothers Podcast. This is B-Word, and we are still here with Sully of the Jacked Up Review Podcast. On the next topic on our rundown, Jake, you kind of came up with this one. It's basically talking about a reboot, whether it's a film or a film franchise, correct?
Correct.
Talk to me about this and kind of what you were thinking.
Well, here's the thing. The reason, I mean, we're talking about all types of franchises, universes, putting characters where they shouldn't be, or what they should make or shouldn't make. And Hollywood has done this for fucking ever. They're going to keep doing it no matter what. So why not we try to have some control over it and reboot a franchise ourselves? So I will preface with this. The one I picked is something that is going to happen one day. It's going to piss me off, but I'll allow it, right? You know what I mean? Because it's inevitable, right? Everything's inevitably going to happen. I'm sure my grandparents were pissed when they remade some like 310 to Yuma or something like that, even though that one sucked, the new one. And I'm just going to come out with this. One of my favorite trilogies of all time is Back to the Future.
Okay.
I think it is amazing. It's one of those for our generation, I think, that holy grail, please don't touch it. Leave it alone. It's fine. We don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
However, since it will happen after Robert Zemeckis dies, okay, it's going to happen. Because, I mean, he said he never would. And when rights go away and he's gone, Hollywood will touch this because they love money.
Right.
I am going to put Jim Carrey as Doc.
Oh.
And the reason is that's the hardest casting of that movie for me, but I think Jim Carrey's crazy enough that he could pull it off. And I'm having Tom Holland as Marty. And I think Tom Holland does a good character of where he could go out on his own, have a little fun. I don't think it's going to be as great as the original, but if you could cast, I think those two could pull it off enough to keep us happy. I know you're not a huge Jim Carrey fan, B-Word, but that's what I would go with.
So I am a good Jim Carrey fan, just not necessarily his new stuff. But let me talk about Tom Holland real quick. Okay. Tom Holland is Michael J. Fox. Like they look alike. Their facial expressions are the same. They're short. They have similar character arcs as far as like in certain movies and whatnot. If there is anybody who can replace Marty in Back to the Future, it would be Tom Holland. However, when Bob Zemeckis dies, we're probably looking 20 years from now, I don't know that Tom Holland would fill that role, but there would probably be somebody else who would do it. Jim Carrey might be a little too old, but I do think that in that role, you might be able to see like Robert Downey Jr., in Doc's role, sans Tom Holland. So I could definitely see that. I agree with you though. That is one that you just don't touch. Like we've talked about this on the podcast. I think that Back to the Future is the perfect movie. I think it is the perfect movie with casting, the perfect movie with storyline. I think that there's arguments about time travel that can be made, and you could talk about that. But as far as the perfect movie, I think it is Back to the Future. So Sully, what do you have for a reboot franchise?
I'm going to reboot the TV show 24. They talked about it before, and every idea just sounded shitty, like a prequel, another spin-out. It was like, no. Let's bring the remaining crew members, make it 12 episodes, bust Jack out of Russia prison where he was thought dead, and maybe cross it over with something that Fox also owns, like, I don't know, Alien, Predator, Die Hard.
So you want to have the same cast and just do a continuation?
Kind of, but I'm open to other ideas, like if you want to just make it to where it is finally a movie franchise, like everyone's asked, or even just put the character in another Fox entity. That's fine too.
Okay.
Have the cast of Prison Break break them out. I don't know.
Okay. I wanted to do something out of the box. So Jake, you're a huge fan of the Universal monsters, right?
Ooh.
Yes, the Monsterverse.
We talked about having the Monsterverse, like who would play what, if they're going to continue it. And I decided to do a full-on casting. So as I go through these, man, I want you to kind of tell me what you think of these, what you think of the castings for these characters.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with Igor. Igor is Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
See it? Maybe, kind of. That's the one that I struggle the most with.
Who's he next to? Who's he next to when he's working? Who's he working with?
Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Frankenstein.
I could see it then.
Sure.
See, I can see it because of that. I couldn't see it if he's going to outshine the person, or also it's not believable that he's not
right
or whatever, however Igor's going to be.
Now, Frankenstein's monster is going to be Rory McCann.
Okay.
So Rory McCann, I think, would do a really good job of playing the monster. He's got the thick head. He's a little bald. He would be able to wear the bolts on the neck very well. He'd be scraggly. He'd be torn up a little bit. I think it'd be really good, especially with some effects there. What do you think?
However, if you look at him, he looks like Paul Giamatti got beat in the face with a tire iron, and that's why he has scars. So there is that.
There is that. Well, there could be a side character that Igor was maybe a son or something. You never know.
Okay.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Michael Sheen.
Okay, and you're going to keep the same guy and sort of do the Hulk thing where they just CGI him. You're not going to let him.
Yep.
Okay.
Michael Sheen. Van Helsing. Abraham Van Helsing. Christoph Waltz.
That's
okay.
That's a great casting right there. I'll say.
I thought that same thing. Bride of Frankenstein. This one was tough too. I went with Kristen Ritter. Kristen Ritter was Jessica Jones.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool.
But I think that she would be good for the role. The thing about the Bride of Frankenstein is not only is it, quote unquote, the Bride of Frankenstein, but there's also some sex appeal to the character. Kristen Ritter's obviously very pretty, and you can make her, this horror porn looking lady. I think that would be all right.
No.
Invisible Man. Invisible Man. I have
You even
Cillian,
need to cast the Invisible Man? No. Just
Yes.
have somebody do a voice behind it.
Cillian Murphy.
Okay.
I love
Cillian-
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that one is
Yes.
good.
Scarecrow getting it in.
We've got the Mummy, Rami Malek. I think
Okay.
that Rami Malek would be really good as the Mummy. Wolfman, we've got Robert Pattinson. So
No.
not putting him in a vampire role, keeping him in the horror genre. I think that he has the look to be able to be Wolfman. But you both are disagreeing with me. So
No.
this
Well,
is
he's a
my
vampire.
list.
He's always been a vampire.
This
He's a
is
bat.
my list.
He's just
This
dead
is
on a
my list, motherfuckers.
It sucks.
My last casting is Count Dracula, Mads Mikkelsen.
Okay, now that wins.
That's great.
That's
Where
great.
is the creature from the Black Lagoon?
Oh, I have that here actually.
Oh, see, thank
so
you. Okay, my favorite.
Gilman is Doug Jones.
Okay. See, I'll give you this. Just like every major franchise universe that has every character can't be perfect, right? And just like your list,
Right.
every character can't be perfect. You get like an 80% on that though. Like you get a really good job all the way across the board. There's just 2 that I would take out of there.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it would be fun. I think it would be a good. I want to talk with you both actually, real quick. I know it's not on the rundown, but Tom Cruise tried to reboot the Universal.
Oh, yeah.
Storyline.
The Dark version.
The Mummy. The
That
Dark
was
Universe.
bad.
The Mummy with what's
Russell
his face.
Crowe. Russell Crowe as Van
was
Helsing.
also put in there, and
Yeah.
that was supposed to be in there. What do you guys think that they're going to try to actually do
No,
this legit?
It actually flopped, so they're abandoning the idea. Because the thing was, they were trying to make it kind of like Marvel and DC, and everyone gets their solo movie, and then they do the team up movie, and they just were unimpressed with the box office and reviews, and they just scrapped it because they were thinking of everything from Angelina Jolie as the Black Lagoon creature, and I was just looking at all the other ones. I'm like, see, we're getting so distracted by the famous faces. It's nothing compared to your list where you're getting semi-known people who are mainly just known for being genre actors. That's why it would work better versus, hey, let's just put John Travolta, let's put ScarJo, let's put,
Yeah.
first A-lister that comes to mind.
That's where I'll
Yeah.
disagree with you in this sense, though, Sully. I do agree, yeah, it did flop. It's never going to happen. We know that part of the news. But I do think Hollywood is going to eventually do it again.
Oh, yeah, they'll do it like they
especially-
did the Wolfman.
Yeah, well, especially we saw how they did Werewolf at Night, the success that Disney had with that.
Werewolf
And that
by
you
Night,
Can, but you can do these universes. I mean, The Munsters is a fucking complete failure. However, if it done right and casted right, and there's actually care behind it and thought.
No, it could be good. I'm not
it'll
saying
work.
it couldn't be good. I'm just saying
Yeah.
they come at it, they're looking at the budget and just putting random actor to it. They're not, when they could easily make their money back by just giving it to a very micro budget, set of genre guys.
Well, let me ask you this: then, which character out of the MonsterVerse would you start with?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Universal horror monsters.
I am. But like, if you used Universal monsters and you were going to if you were going to go forward with the cinematic universe, which monster do you think is the best pick to get that one started? Sort of like how Iron Man was the start of MCU. Right?
I would honestly want to do one giant epic, really.
Okay.
I would want to have so pulling back for a minute. So you remember the movie Van Helsing, right?
Yeah.
People either like it or hate it. I'm just going at a similar way. Just have a bunch of, have Sherlock Holmes type guys, have Indiana Jones type adventurers team up, and they're trying to see about all these myths about these monsters, and they're on a hunt, and then they start getting ambushed by all the creatures one by one.
Sort of like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right?
Yes, thank you. And then eventually they come into a castle that Van Helsing occupies, and he serves as their reinforcement in, sci-fi horror exposition, and then says, okay, he pretty much becomes the Professor Xavier of the team, where he's like, okay, guys, let's kick some fucking ass here. I can't stake all these vampires and harpoon them all by myself. And then, yes, they start learning how to torch. We could leave it open for a sequel, or we could wrap it up. But it would promise Gremlins, Howling type practical effects mixed with Indiana Jones type adventure. It would be a lot of fun.
Okay. So, Jake, question to you then. How would you restart this franchise?
I wouldn't go with the biggest, baddest one. I would actually start it either on a side story of just Igor and Dr. Frankenstein without making Frankenstein's monster, and the sequel leads up to him, where it's the whole storyline up to that. Or I would do the Creature of the Black Lagoon. And the reason is, it's not just because it's my favorite. It is an easy sell if you get a monster creature that dwells into a monster universe, and then there's more human-like ones that show up later. I think when you start out with a humanized character, you lose a little bit of that monster sense, and it doesn't feel the same. Creature features are usually in my wheelhouse, as we know, and I feel like that would be a better approach, especially like with the casting too of who you do it. Now, do I care whether Gale-Man is man or woman? Yes and no, in the sense of it is fun to see him chase the damsel in distress like they did in the old film. However, I think it would be a good change of pace, you know, like how they were going to cast Angelina Jolie to have that sort of appeal, almost like the movie Species, where it's that sexiness like to it, but you're weirded out that you're attracted to it, you know what I mean? And how do you go about it? But I think it also opens up a lot more freedom with a character like that rather than Dracula, where it's like almost typecast that you know where you're going to be. If you did the Creature of the Black Lagoon, you could do it in Africa, you could do it in Australia, you could do it almost anywhere on the planet and start the universe a lot easier that way by being able to tie in most places instead of being landlocked in, okay, we're in Transylvania, here's Dracula, here's Van Helsing, we're going to go to Frankenstein next, and the patterns there. Because I think if you show patterns of repetition and easiness for fans, that's where we get turned off too. In the sense of, oh, I know where this is going to go. This is why people don't like creature features, right? It starts out with a normal family, a problem arises from outer space or some other genetic experience. They go through a problem and then they blow everything up. I mean, that's the formula for those movies. It's great, it's easy, it's fun. However, most people don't like it, just like I don't like horror, because it's like, okay, problem, dumb girl, black guy dead, end of movie.
Right. The billionth Doom, Predator, Alien knockoff. And like you say, it can be overwhelming. It can be, because it's so predictable. I mean, it's like when you see the billionth take on Sherlock Holmes or Tarzan, you're like, okay, so now it's becoming a James Bond Batman thing where I'm getting so occupied with who's playing the legendary role on an already thin storyline. And I like the Dr. Frankenstein idea, though. I mean, you could even have Jekyll and Hyde, like, or being his friend, thinking, like in the background, and we hint is like, okay, I have great secrets to show you, along the way. But no, I like that. As South Africa setting, you could mix in a lot of urban legends and myths, and have a fun scavenger team who are finding all these fossils and bones, and without being, like you say, the billionth, shit goes wrong, Jurassic Park thing, and everyone's a fucking idiot who barely escaped college.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would love to see a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde done, really dark, really gritty. Make it very much focused about mental health, almost like the Joker.
Yes.
Where you have this character who's dealing with the trauma, where you have this mental anguish that Mr. Hyde or Dr. Jekyll is going through, and then he becomes Mr. Hyde. And maybe you set it up to where you're following these two separate characters, almost like the movie Memento, the Christopher Nolan movie Memento, where you have two entirely different characters, two entirely different storylines, and at the very end of it, you have both characters meeting to find out that they're the same person. Have that Fight Club-esque ending a little bit with that, where you have the mental health, you have the anguish of the Joker and some of that sort of stuff, but then you also have that surprise at the end. And maybe that the movie necessarily wouldn't need to be called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It could almost be like a Shakespearean title where it's Jekyll and Hyde are in there, they're the characters, but they're not necessarily trying to replicate the same storyline that's always been told, if that makes sense.
That does. Totally. Can I ask you both this question, though, on this? We know back in the day those movies scared people, right? Because people had a different sense back then and stuff. Would you limit your audience by making these all rated R and go for that harder, scarier feel now? Or would you try to be open and almost do it like you're saying, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, almost like a Moon Knight, where it's like it's just enough but still family friendly? I mean, I'm going for hard R on that. I want this to be scary. I want this to be adult. Like, I get that it does limit the audience, but we've also proven that that doesn't always affect box office.
You can still make Matrix type money. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you're not going to do R, then it's got to still be a very hard PG-13.
Okay.
I'm hard R, dude. I want this to be dark, gritty. The bloody, the gory doesn't necessarily need to be there, but I want terror. I mean, think of it this way, man. Like, there's a lot of people out there that deal with mental health, right? And some things can be very, very, the words that's coming to mind is very soft, but I guess very mild, I suppose. You can have very mild depression. You can have very mild things. But then there's some mental anguish. There's some personality disorders that, you know, like, I thought it was great with the Joker when he's laughing and you could tell the pain while he's laughing, right? I want to see that on screen. I want language. I want, you know, boobies and subies, because that's what I'm about. I want all of that sort of stuff, but I want it in a method to where the audience isn't necessarily scared of it, but they see what's happening on screen and it fucks with them. Like, I want a movie to fuck with me in that way. And I felt like the Joker did that with me a little bit, because here I am to see Batman's arch nemesis, right? But I didn't realize the emotional trauma and the mental trauma that this was going to create, or at least have me feel on his behalf. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. You brought up a good point, and this actually is going to be a great segue, B-Word. So great job again on the show, like normal. If we could pick an artist, a musical artist, to produce and perform a new movie soundtrack in the sense of it's in its entirety, just like Batman, 1989, Prince did that whole album.
Right.
What artist do you think could stand up to do something like that? And you could put it in your genre films like I did, or however, but like, what artist do you think could pull that off?
So let me preface this. Give me a film genre, and then I'll give you an artist.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi. And are we doing lyrics, or is this just instrumental?
You don't have to. Yeah.
Sci-fi. I want. You know, what would be good for sci-fi?
What?
Kanye West.
Oh God.
Okay.
I think Kanye West could pull off a sci-fi. I think it would be something where you would have to go back to his college dropout days. And you'd have to go to the fun beats. Yeah. Yes, and I think that the sci-fi would be very much a Guardians of the Galaxy-esque type storyline. Wouldn't necessarily be a comic book movie or anything, but just that fun space, buddy road trip comedy type action thriller, all mixed into one, right?
Okay.
And you have the fun beats, you have the fun taglines, the fun choruses. And you have some tribal music, depending on what planet you're on. You have different sort of ethnic beats, again, depending upon what planet you're on or what species you're encountering or
Planet
whatever.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah, Planet
Where
Easy.
the ladies are easy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think Kanye could pull that off. Just generically, though, I know that Eminem was very involved with 8 Mile. And
right.
Eminem now has a song that's coming out with Shazam, the new Shazam movie. I would love to see what Eminem can put pen to paper with, and within the recording booth to do a full-on soundtrack for a film. And I want this film to be like an action, thriller or something like that. I think it would be cool. I think it would be a really cool type soundtrack for that.
Do you want him performing every song, or do you want it to be like K-Dot did with the Black Panther album, where he was pretty much involved in every song, but he wasn't
I want it very much like K-Dot. I want it very much like K-Dot, where you have the instrumentals, you have the songs that actually have lyrics that, maybe the opening song, maybe the end song, and another handful that maybe the instrumentals play throughout the movie. But I would love to see it in that sense. And I don't want his like makeshift Egyptian, little puppet dog voice. I want Eminem rapping as Eminem.
Okay. Sully, what about you?
Okay, so I had Gary Newman and 9 Inch Nails in the style of Star Trek.
Okay. Which Star Trek universe?
It could be just a whole new crew.
Okay, so all over.
You pick the time, but yeah, new crew. Doesn't have to stand alone deal, and I just see them crafting a very moody, very ricocheting kind of score that can be almost as dark as their David Fincher contributions, as well as just provide some other kind of atmospheric and very emotional. I mean, did you see what was that one Pixar movie they did? Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey.
It was the blues one.
Soul. Did you see Soul, the Pixar? Yeah. Okay, yeah. There's a lot of piano in that. I think they could really go to town, and Gary's got just a wonderful kind of voice for just kind of showing emotion and despair, as well as just mildly uplifting, but just slowly getting there. So you could make it a little more claustrophobic. They're trapped in space.
Okay, I get that. See, there's a few roads I'd go down with this B-word. If it was comedy, of course, I'm picking somebody like They Might Be Giants or Weird Al, right? Be fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
If I wanted to cheat, I would go with Mogwai, one of my favorite instrumental bands. They've done stuff for like Wicker Park, and I mean they're very talented that way.
Not to be confused with the Gremlins.
No, just the band, and they are not aliens, so fuck you, B-word. I will say this, artist that I think could pull off a full album on his own, and I can't pick a genre just because I think he could go all over, is actually Justin Timberlake.
Didn't he do that with Trolls?
He did, essentially, partly, but it's not all him. And so but what I'm saying is he's a great songwriter. He has a great voice. He does play instruments. I think that he could bring in a lot of different variations because he does experiment with each album too. I'm a big JT fan, but it is the fact that he does that. So I think he would dwell into other things and try. He might do a country song, or he might do something else that is outside of his realm to make it work for a whole soundtrack. So artist-wise, I think he is great. My dream would be to take 9 Inch Nails and Trent Reznor and do like a Blade Runner like style film and just him the whole movie, because I think and that's that sci-fi sort of realm, but I mean that I just think goes so fucking well together with the graphics, with the machines, with the futuristicness of it.
Yeah.
Because I've said this before on the show, 9 Inch Nails is one of those bands that to me is timeless, and what I mean by that is you could put in the Downward Spiral in the 90s when it came out, and it sounds like it comes from the 90s. You could have played that in the 80s, and it sounds like it comes from the 80s. You could also play it now, and it sounds like it comes from now. And that is the one thing that I enjoy about 9 Inch Nails is they have crossed and transcended that aspect of where, mind you, you can't play them in the 20s, and so I understand that. But like if we're going with new age music and moving forward, it could come out 10 years later, and my kids are probably like, "Oh, who are you listening to?" And they could still feel it. And so I feel that he would do a good job.
I hate to be Captain Obvious, my man, but we are in the 20s right now. So
fuck you. Shut the hell up. Don't do that. Don't do like you usually do on this show. I'm like, I'm gonna be right. Look at me.
Love it. Fucking love it. Well, with that, man, I think we had some pretty good picks. I think we had some pretty good discussion on here. Sully, thank you very much for joining us this week, my man.
Absolutely, my dude. I did not know what to expect, but yeah, I'm glad you prepped me. I was like, yeah, this is badass.
Absolutely. So for our audience that might not be familiar with your podcast, where can they find you? When do your episodes come out, etc.?
We have 5 episodes a week, something for everybody, everything. And we are, Jacked Up Review Show is on Twitter, Instagram, and is available on just about every platform. Google, Apple, Podbean, Anchor, Spotify. And well, we'll keep trying out various networks, and love to have just all kinds of guests on. If anyone wants to just start just talking about something that drives their passion and has a story to tell, let's tell it.
Perfect. Well, with that, Jake, it's been a great discussion. What do you got for me?
Thanks for all the dirty talk. Come back and get sanitized. If you're a fan of our show, be sure to check out this one to stay sanitized.
Hey everyone, it's Gnome from the Hateful Gnomes Music Hut. I'm here with my good buddy, Jake the Hater, and we're bringing you a bi-weekly music podcast for all your heavy metal needs. Tell them about it, Jake.
We are here to have our horns up, and we are staying heavy. That is right. Even B-Word is producing behind the scenes, turning his mic off. But you know what? We are going to give the fans something bigger, badder, and fucking bolder. Tune in bi-weekly, a Spreaker Prime podcast.